Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Mem Gimel in Nidrim. Yesterday we got down to the Mishnah about 6-7 lines down on the page. We'll pick it up from the Mishnah. Amrlo Hashileni Parascha. Reuben said to Shimon, lend me your cow. Can I please borrow your cow? You got a whole field here to plow. I can use it. Amrlo, ain't it pnuya? It's not available right now. Like it's busy. People who don't want to lend you the right. Well, it's lent out now. I can't lend it to you right now. So Reuben got upset, as people do. Amar konim sadai shani chorishba. That's it. I forbid myself to plow with that cow ever. Okay, that's what he said. Amar konim sadai shani chorishba. I forbid myself to plow at all that I would want to use with that cow. So and he said la'olam. So he said, I'm never going to plow with it again. I'm never going to plow with it. But I'm never going to plow with it for the entire life. He got angry. Oh, you don't want to lend it to me? Obviously, you're just trying to evade me. So he made us a netter and he said, I'm never going to plow with it again. And the field the cow is forbidden for me to plow with my field forever. Now,
he doesn't say with that person's cow.
He said, ba, sheni chorish ba. In my field, I will not plow with it. You see Rashi says, shaloach v'shadai parascha olamas, with your cow. That's what he meant to say. Sheni chorish ba. Ba means with the cow. So lo, ima yadarko lachrosh. Now let's say he himself was the one who usually plowed. It was his field and he plowed it. He didn't just have workers. He plowed it himself. Then who was matarin? Because he said, I forbid effectively. Again, he said it with a netter, so that the cow is forbidden for him to use to plow his field forever and ever. If he normally did it himself, he was going to plow, then he can't plow with it, but somebody else could. He could have one of his workers do it. Im ein darko lachrosh. But if he didn't do it himself, he just wanted to use the cow and he would have other people plow it for him. Then who v'cholar masurin? That he meant to say is, never use the cow at all. In other words, was the netter just going on him actually plowing it? If he usually was the one who did it, so you could say that he meant it only himself, not other people. But if he didn't do it anyway normally, somebody else did it for him. So what was he forbidding? He was forbidding, I don't want it, your cow should never be used to plow my field, period. Okay, that's the Mishnah. That's one case. Now we have another case, like another Mishnah. Again, these are talking about you made a netter. What did he mean by it? So that's what he means. If you look at the Ran, let's see the Ran. We have a little time today. It's a short daf. We can see the Ran inside, 5 lines down on the left side into the wide lines, not the widest lines, the medium-sized wide lines. Shoel Omarkach. The Shoel, Reuven. The way we've been learning is Reuven is the one who can't have enough from Shimon. So Reuben said, "The chaver mitoch shekasa." He got angry. You don't want to lend your cow. Ima yadarko lachrosh. The Ran goes on. Who also v'chol matarim shekivin shehu choresh. Emash mas l'shana ella chavish. Since he's normally the one who does the plowing, so you could say, "I'm never going to plow with this cow again." That's what he really means. I'm never going to plow my field with your cow again. Metam said, "In the ein darko lachrosh." If it's not his custom to do it himself, then hu b'chol masurim. So he didn't mean his own plowing, but he's going to do it. He doesn't normally do it anyway. He doesn't know how to use the cow and the plow and all that. He said he doesn't. He's a mafunak. He sits and learns. He meant to say that he won't have any pleasure from the plowing. And that's what that was what his intention was. Therefore, everybody's also should have enough. Okay, that's one case. Now we have another case. Reuven forswore that he can't have any enough from Shimon. As we've learned, you can either say, I'm not going to have any enough from you, period, or Shimon forbade him to have any enough from him. Either way, Reuven is the one who can't have enough. Hamura mechabero, the ein lo mayochal. Now he knows, he says he can't have enough from Shimon. Let's say Shimon made a netter. Shimon would be the matter in that case and says, you, Reuben, can't have any enough from me. So Reuben can't have enough from Shimon. But Shimon realizes, he'd like to help him out. Now, we're talking about, you can't all these cases, you can always go and be matzah by chachamim, go to the get a tarsadam if the chacham will find a heter for you. But let's say there's no chacham there, or for whatever reason, it's a netter stands. So and he doesn't have what to eat. Reuben's afraid that Shimon doesn't have to eat. Now we'll see. It doesn't mean literally there's nothing to eat. It could be that he could find, but he doesn't want to make it difficult for him. So Shimon can go to this normal to his makola, but Omer, and he says, "Ish pani mudar adon many." Reuben can't have enough for me. He's mudar no, either he swore or I swore, but he can't have enough. Many. Any of them must. I don't know. What can I do to help him out? He gives him a little wink and say, "What can I do to help him out?" Now, I don't know what to do. But who knows, Sinlo? So the Makolit guy says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." The Makolit guy gives Reuben food, gives him food. He didn't say, "Listen, I want you to give him food and I'll pay you." Because in that case, he's a shliach. He's giving it up. Either way, Reuben's going to get the food. But Shimon can't say to the shopkeeper, to the Makolit guy, "Send him a bunch of food and I'll pay you for it." Because then he's a shliach. Effectively, he's doing it directly. But he says, "Look, he can't have enough for me. I don't know how to help him. What can I do?" So he's hinting to him, and he understands the hint. And he goes and the Makol guy goes and sends him food. Pardon? Smochalai, right? Don't worry, smochalai, right? As a moment, each point in many of the masla, but who knows in low? And then the Chanvani, the Makola owner, can come and say, get paid for it. Not that Shimon has to pay him. Because if Shimon has to pay him, then it's clear that he sent him as a messenger to do it for him. But he says you could do this kind of a game where he hints at him. He says, "Look, I don't know what to do for him. What can I do for the guy?" So like you say, he says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And then he can go and get paid, and that's not considered direct hana. Because Shimon didn't really say, "You give him the food and I'll pay you." Shimon just hinted to him. And he was nice and he get the food. And then if that gets considered indirect enough. Not only when it comes to food, it's even a big chiddush. Let's say he was building a house. Reuben was building a house, and Shimon could have helped him, but he made an error. He's not going to have enough from Shimon. Right? He's not going to have enough from Shimon. Or he had a fence to erect, or or he had a field to harvest. And again, in all these cases, Reuben couldn't have enough from Shimon, and Shimon wants to have enough. So Shimon can go to the workers, guys who know how to work, probably the ones who know how to harvest, know how to build, and etc. But Omer, and he said, "Listen, each body, but over many. Reuben can't have enough for me. He met it, never can't have enough. Many of them asked, I don't know what to do. The hay knows anymore, and they work for him. They do the work. They harvest the field, build the fence, build the house. Then they can go get paid from Shimon. Again, because he didn't say directly, he didn't send him as a messenger. Now, before we get to the last case, let's continue to see the Ran. The Ran is the second of the widest lines in the bottom. The second of the widest. The Aflik of the Rogalet slow, even though Shimon knows the Makolit owner. Makolit knows the guy, right? Shimon goes to the Makolit owner and he says, "Look, this guy can't give enough me. I don't know what to do for him." He always gives him credit. He always gives him credit. Elder Shom, he always writes it down. He gives him credit. We don't say that he's doing his bidding. We don't say the Makolit owner is a shliach for him. If he didn't say to any particular person, he didn't go to the Makolit guy. He didn't say that Loshin, as we'll see. Whoever hears me, please go give him food. If you hear my request, please go give him food, because then he's making that guy a messenger. But if he said, whoever wants to feed him won't lose out, Shari Kedisa Perikamana, like we had before, Perikamana, that you could do that. If he says, whoever feeds him will not lose out, can you help him out over here? That's not considered directly. Imrotza, the Makolit owner or the workers who did a benefit for Reuben, either giving him food in the case of Makolit owner or workers in the case of building or harvesting. Imrotza Komer, Velomer, the Afal Gab, even though at the end Shimon is going to pay for it, and that's what they understood one another when they gave him a wink to one another. It's not actually he says, whoever hears me, please go and do this. That's considered a messenger. then he's doing it directly, and that he can't do because since Reuben can't have enough from Shimon, he can't give him direct on it. Matter. When we say that the makol owner can go back to Shimon and get paid, or the workers can get paid, it's not halacha that they have to because if he has to pay him, he's doing a shlichus mahani leiva aser. If we say, okay, the makol owner can go and Shimon says, listen, I demand the money. You hinted to me, and I said smoke halai, but you hinted to me, and I paid him. And you owe me the money in court. You owe it to me because then he's a messenger. Then the makol guy was a messenger directly for Shimon, and that would be also because he's giving him out directly. The same thing with the workers. If the workers can demand to get paid, then effectively Shimon made the messengers, right? He consigned them to help him out, to give him food or to work for him, whatever. And in that case, he effectively hired them. He hired them because if they can demand the money, that means that he must have hired them, and he's giving directly hana. Okay. Now we said the Mishnah the Ran goes on. Not only the first case with money, maybe okay, the guy's hungry, doesn't have food, so maybe you allow it in a case like that. The same goes for the fuel itself being in base. It's not even he needs food. He just wants to build his house, build his fence, harvest his field. Even in a case like that, you could do it if it's not direct. Okay, one more case. Back to the Mishnah now. We're at the Mishnah, 5 lines before the end of the Mishnah. You're walking on the road, and he doesn't have what to eat. Again, Reuben and Shimon they have to be walking on the road together. And Reuben forswore that he's not going to have enough from Shimon, and now he doesn't have what to eat. There's no makolet nearby. So what can you do? Now, this is a bigger hit because in the first case, you could say, Reuben had enough from Shimon. And so Shimon says, look, he probably needs some food. What can I do? What can I do for this guy? But he probably had other options. He could have gotten food. He could have borrowed, begged, or steal from somebody else food, right? But over here, they're on the road. And there's nobody else there. And this guy's hungry. So what can Shimon do? Shimon can't give the food directly to Reuben. He can give it to somebody else. There's another passerby there. Give the food to somebody else as a gift. And that other person can give it to Reuben. Again, it's not direct. Let's say there's nobody else there. They're out on a desolated road somewhere, and there's no isolated road, and there's nobody else there. Shimon can take the food, put it on a rock or put it on a fence. And he says, it's hefker. And Shimon, whatsoever wants, even though the only other person there is Reuben, but I'm making it hefker for anybody who wants to. You can take it even in that case because he didn't give it directly to him. I don't know. Rabbi Yossi Oser. Rabbi Yossi Asers in this last case. We're going to talk about Rabbi Yossi. But before we get to the details of, if it would be pikuach nefesh, then everything is mutter, right? Pikuach nefesh. And don't forget, the problem is that Reuben doesn't want to take the food either. Reuben knows he can't have enough from Shimon, right? Either Shimon forbade him or Reuben forbade him. So the issue, if it's pikuach nefesh, everything is mutter for pikuach nefesh. So if it's pikuach nefesh, the guy's dying, maybe he should just take the food, whether you played a shtick or not, you could take the food. But here we're talking about where they want to abide by the netter, but what could they do? They're in this tough situation. He has no other food apparently. I don't think it's a case where he's dying right away, but is there a way around it? Yes. So either give it to somebody else and the other guy gives it to him, or put it on the rock and make it hefker. Rabbi Yossi says no. Rabbi Yossi answers in this case. It doesn't say it doesn't work. Rabbi Yossi answers in this case. We'll see Rabbi Yossi in a minute. But before we even get to the machlokas here between the Tanakam and Rabbi Yossi, here we have machlokas, right? The Chum say this is what you could do. You could make it hefker, leave it out. You're in an isolated road. Only 2 of you are there. Make it hefker, and the other guy could take it. Rabbi Yossi forbids it. We'll see why Rabbi Yossi forbids it in a minute. But first, let's look at the Mishnah. Turn to Memches. It's next Monday's daf. And this Mishnah on Memches. Take a look at Memches and Aleph. Pardon? Oh, you don't have. Oh, okay. So listen carefully. It's the Mishnah is very similar. The Mishnah says, "Hamura ana mechavero." It's right smack in the middle of the page on Memches and Aleph if you have it. Hamura mechavero. Again, Reuben can't have enough from Shimon. Ve'eno mayochel, and Reuben doesn't have any food. This sounds just like the case we just said. No salach l'shumatana. This is exactly like our Mishnah, right? It's like a continuation of our Mishnah. You can give it to somebody else for a gift, and the other guy, and Reuben can take it from the other guy. That's our Mishnah. This is like Mamish the same words as our Mishnah. But now he goes on. Maisa, there was a story, a famous story, happened in Beit Charon in the north of Israel. What happened was here, he had a son and a father. And the son had forbade his father having any enough from him. Can't have any enough. Or the father forbade having enough from the son. There was a fight in the family. Never happens. But here it happened. This is the only time in the history of Jews that there was a fight in the family. And the father was not allowed to have any enough from the son. Okay. I know. He couldn't have any enough. Now the son was making a wedding. And he wanted the father to come. Right? So he tells Yankel, his friend, the whole wedding, the hall and the wherever he did it in his house, whatever, the chutzner, the food, the suda, it's all yours. It's all yours. And he told him, Hinan lefanecha, chutzner v'suda lefanecha, because I want my father to be able to come and eat it. So I'm giving it to you. So he's not getting it off from me, he's getting it from you. That's what he said. Amar, so Yankel said, Im shaliyim, if they belong to me, harei mukdashim shemayim, I'm makdish. If it's mine, I'm being makdish, I'm giving it away to Hegdish. I'm consecrating it. Pardon? Pick the wrong guy. Amalei, nasati l'cho es shalish et akdishem l'shamayim. That's why I gave it to you, that you should be makdish it. I did it to you, so that I gave it to you, so my father should be able to come. Amalo nasato li es shalcha el sheteato vicha ochem v'shos misratzes el zeh. You gave it to me so that you and your father could sit and enjoy a meal together, enjoy the great simcha, even though he's forbidden to have enough from you. The avon totally barosho, and who's going to be the sin? Who's going to be the sinner? Me. I'm barosho. Meaning he said, meaning it's on me because I'm the one who's taking part in this kanunya, in this scheme, just to get around it. And it's clear that you're not really giving it to me, right? Because it can't be makdish. Amru chachamim kol matana she'ena, any matana, and I'm explaining it the way the Ran explains it. It's not really a matana. She mikdisha te mekudeshes. If he wanted to makdish it, he couldn't. It could be makdish it if he wanted to. If he can't do ena matana. So the simple pshat is, if it's a gift in which he can't be makdish it, that's not really a matana. The Ran points out here that it's not exactly true because a matana, amanas lachzer, is a matana. For example, what's a classic thing we do all the time? You lulav and esrog, right? You give it to somebody else, it has to be in the first day of lakach. Pardon? Yeah. It's similar to that too. But I don't know if they do it in a form of selling it on manas to get it back. I think afterwards he has to get it after Yom Tov, he has to buy it back from him. But they could. But the point is that it's a matana maslachser is a matana. Even if the matana maslachser, the Ran says over here is, I'm giving it to you, I'm manas to give it back to me, and you can't be makdish it because I'm giving it to you only for that. But the Ran says the difference there is that at least for the time that you had it, that you gave it to the other guy, it was really his, right? It was really his. So for example, I gave you my lulav, so you could, on the first day of Sukkot, so you could be Yotzei, because it's got to be yours, like it's got to be yours. I'm not sure you're going to give it back to me, but while you have it, it's really yours. You can't be makdish it because you're supposed to give it back to me, but it's really yours. Over here, he never meant to give it away. Because he says, what you didn't really give it to me. You didn't really give it to Yankel. All you did was you told Yankel, let it be, it's in your name registered, but we're going to continue eating. He didn't really give it to him. That guy couldn't do anything with it. And he didn't give it to even for a second. The Ran says, the Ran says right before the lines get wide on this page, it's not even a matana for a second. Shalom is like no. So look, he didn't really give it to him at all. Just wanted to know it's Yankel's suit, it's Yankel's chatzer, it's the whole the catering, the whole thing belongs to Yankel. Kadeshi Yabav Mutaba. Behind the list of matana, the masis the tani kol matana she'ena she'imikdish. I'm guessing this. Look tani kol matana she'imikdish. It didn't say any gift which you can't be makdish is not considered a gift. He didn't say that. Kol matana she'ena. Any matana, which is not a matana at all, that if you wanted to make kasher, he said chain because here he never meant to give it as a gift at all. That was the story in Beis Charon, and the Chum said that it's not really a gift. That's not a valid way to do it because there it was clearly obvious, and he said so. I'm giving it to you so that my father should be able to have enough. So in that case, it's not valid. You can't do that because it's not really a gift. He didn't really give it to him. So in this case, it was clear. In other words, in this case, doesn't work. And the father cannot attend the wedding and eat the food because it's clear that he's having it directly from the son. This is the story in Beis Charon. Now, this story we'll come back to in a few minutes, but the point over here is that our Mishnah is slightly different because in our Mishnah, he said what? He said he was out on the road with a guy. Reuben couldn't have enough from Shimon, and Shimon wants to help now. So he can give it to somebody else, and the other guy can give it to him. I'm giving it to you, giving you the food. Maybe he did it with a wink, you understand the guy's hungry and giving it to you, but he didn't do it directly. But he really meant to give it to the guy. I meant to give it to the other guy. I'm Shimon. I meant to give it to the third party, give to you. Then, if there's nobody else there, you can say, I'm mafker it. Here's where you have machlokas between Rabbi Yossi and the Chacham, whether you can be mafker or not. I'm Rabbi Yochanan, back in the Gemara, and then Gimel Meral, after the Mishnah. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. My time Rabbi Yossi. What's Rabbi Yossi's reasoning why he says it's usher? After all, I was mafker it, right? There was nobody else there. I couldn't give it to you directly, and I couldn't give it to somebody else. So I made a hefker. What's the problem? I'm going to have my time Rabbi Yossi. Ksavar hefker kamatana. Hefker is like a gift. Mamatana dasimishus no semishus makabel. Just like a gift. It's not a gift until you received it, until the recipient received it. The donor, when he says, I'm giving it as a gift, it's not a gift until the recipient receives it. The same way, af hefker, ados zocha, it's not hefker. Hefker is not, you can't just be mafker something stam. It has to get to somebody. It's not hefker. In other words, I could always take it back. If somebody else wasn't zocha in it, I could take it back. It's not hefker anymore. Hefker is only like a gift. It's not considered hefker until the other person is zoch, and it's still mine. It's still mine. That's his point. Mamatana hadasim mishus no saying lushus makabel, just like a matana, until it gets into the hands of the recipient, it still belongs to the donor. Adas mishus no saying lushus makabel, and since it still belongs to the donor, he can renege, he can retract. Hefker adas mishus zoch, it still belongs to the donor. So over here, who's the donor? Shimon. Shimon wants to give it to Reuben. Reuben can't have enough from him. So Shimon says, I'm putting it down and being mafker. Okay. So the Tanakhama says, well, hefker is hefker. And now Reuben's picking it up from hefker, like from a third party. Rabbi Yossi holds, according to Rabbi Yochanan, says over here, we're gonna take this back later on, we'll slug this up. But at this point, Rabbi Yossi says, no, it still belongs to Shimon. Hefker is like a gift, just like a gift that belongs to the gifter, to the donor, until the recipient receives it, to the giftee, right? Same thing, hefker, until somebody else picks it up, it belongs to the donor. And in this case, the donor is Shimon. So when Reuven picks it up, he's getting it directly from Shimon. It's not like it's hefker. It's not like it went through a third stage. Shimon made it hefker. And now Reuven picked it up from hefker. No, when he picked it up from hefker, he's picking it up directly from Shimon. That's what Yochanan says. Master Rav Abba, so Rav Abba has a kash on this. That part is just like our Mishnah, but apparently it's a brisa that he quotes because Rabbi Yossi goes on. It says, right? The other person picks it up and he eats it, right? Put it down make it hefker, like the Tanakhama said. And Reuben comes and takes it and picks it up and eats it. Rabbi Yossi says he can't. Rabbi Yossi, that's only, this doesn't work if he made the native first and then he was mafkir. What did he say? He said, listen, you, Reuben, can't have any enough for me, period. You can't have any enough. Then they were on the road and Reuben didn't have what to eat. So he said, okay, I'm mafkir it. Now he's trying to get around it. Well, there we say that you can't do that, right? You can't get around it now because you're giving it directly. Avolim hoya mafkir, and I'm in base now. I'm in base you have, right? You still have that this time, right? But if he was mafkir first, let's say he didn't make a neder asking Reuben to have enough from Shimon. Shimon was mafkir his food over here. He had some food, he's made it hefker. And then afterwards, Reuben come along and he says, no, you can't have enough from me. Then Reuben could have enough from Shimon because he was mafkir before. If you say if you say what, that it's not hefker until the other guy picks it up, right? That it's still Reuben's, it's still Shimon's rather. Until Reuben picks it up, it still belongs to Shimon. Mali nidru kar mafker, Mali afker kar nidru. What's the difference when he made the netter? If he made the netter before he was mafker, or he made the netter after he was mafker? Either way, it's not hefker. It belongs to Shimon. So why do you say that if he was mafker first, before the netter, then Reuben could take it? Why? According to what you just said, that it's not hefker until the other guy picks it up. In other words, even though you would mafker it, it still belongs to you until somebody else takes it. And therefore, Reuben's getting it directly from Shimon. What's the difference if he made the netter before he was mafker, or if he made the netter after he was mafker? Either way, it's still his until Reuben picks it up. So he's getting it directly. Mali afker kamandero. Who most of who Mushanibla. Rav Abba asked the kasha and Rav Abba answered it. He asked the question, he answered. What did he say? Very simple. The reason is, he stands his ground, and he said it still belongs to you until that. But he says, you know what? When you make a netter, you're making a netter, and he says, you can't have anything off from me on anything, it's mine. But if he was mafkered already, it could very well be that that the hefker is still his until the other guy picks it up. It's still Shimon, still it. But your mind is not on that. When I forbid you to have hanaf from me, I meant anything that I have now. Something that I was mafker, I'm not thinking about that. So I didn't mean to include that in the netter. That's why it works. In other words, he stands his ground. Now, take a look in the Ran, not in the Ran. Where is it? In the Ran on the right side, top of the page, call it the Matzi Harbe. The delay, you're right, it still belongs to Shimon. And if he forbade him from that mind, if he said specifically, the thing that I was mafker, you can't have enough from it, the Farish, Chayal Nidro. The reason why he says that Rabbi Yossi himself says, if he was mafker first and then he made the netter, then even Rabbi Yossi's moda that Shimon can give the food to Reuven. You can take that hefker. Why? Because Shimon never meant to include the stuff that he was already mafker on Reuven, because I was mafker already. I don't want you to have any enough for me. Something that I was mafker, he's not thinking about that. Even though technically, if he was mafker it still belongs to him. And if he said specifically, the thing that I was mafker yesterday, you can't have enough from, Reuven couldn't have enough from because he would be getting it directly from him. But over here, he says that something you're mafker already, you didn't mean to include that in the netter. Okay, that's his answer. Okay, so he stands his ground, and at this point, Rabbi Yochanan's point is valid, that hefker like matana, just like matana adasi mishus nosim mishus makabel, af hefker af nosim mishus makabel. So, in other words, that's Rabbi Yossi's reasoning in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi says in our Mishnah that if they're walking on the road, and Shimon had forsworn that Reuben can't have enough from him, and now Reuben's hungry, and Shimon wants to give him some food, and there's nobody else there, he could put it down and be mafker, says the Tanakama. Rabbi says you can't do that, because since he forbade him from having enough from him, and the item, even if he's mafker, belongs to Shimon until Reuben picks it up, he's getting it direct from Rabbi Yossi. It's different if he was mafker something before, then he didn't mean to include that in the netter, asking Reuben and Shimon. But here he wasn't mafker before. Masav Rava, another kasha now. This kasha is more difficult. It says Miksas Rishon Kol Sheni, Rishon Kana Sheni Lo Kana. What are we speaking about? The Ran is a different gears over here. He has a different gears, and he learns the case of speaking about Avodim, and it's more complicated. It's a different gears. He says that not Rishon Kana Sheni Lo Kana, but Sheni Kana Rishon Lo Kana. The way we have the Girsa, and you see the Gemara is quoting Gemara in Bava Basra, Kukmam Chesed and Beis. The following is the case. We're speaking about a Shriv Mira who died. A Shriv Mira was dying. Now the rule is that a Shriv Mira, it's like it's given over. But when is that? That's if he gives everything away. He gave everything away because he doesn't want it to fall to Yerusha or to whatever his reason is. He's on his deathbed and he's giving everything away. And it's given away. And if he dies subsequently, where he said what he said is valid, even if it wasn't written down. However, let's say he survived. He thought he was about to die, and then he survived, and he had given everything away. Then it doesn't work. It's not given away. It's not a kinyan. So here the case is this. Take a look in the Rashi now. Not the way the Ran had a different gears in the Gemara. So let's look at Rashi about 9 lines down on the page. Rashi on the left side in the narrow lines. Masav Rav Miksas Rishon Kol Sheni Shchimera. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about Shchimera. Shekasav mikzas nechasav le'echad, v'hashar kula and kasav l'sheni. What happened over here? He had two friends, number one and number two. And he gave, the Shchimera was dying.
What does it say?
What? Shekasav mikzas, okay, it doesn't mean, the truth is that it's divrei Shchimera kichsuvim, it's as if it's written down. The truth is, he could have instructed somebody to write it down, or maybe he had the strength to write it down himself. It doesn't make any difference. But the point is that if he only did it because he's a shchimera and then he survived, so the rule is that he didn't. It's not given. Okay. He wrote some stuff to one person. The guy didn't make a kinyan on it yet, right? He didn't make a kinyan on it yet. He wrote. He's giving something. Let's call the two people number one and number two. So he gave, let's say, 25% of his assets to number one, right? And then the other 75% he gave to number two. So that means what he gave to number two cleaned him out. That means he gave everything away. When he gave it to number one came by and said, "You're dying, you're not giving me anything. Okay, here's 25%." Number two came along, he gave him everything else that he had. Okay. Rishon Kana, Rashi goes on. Rishon Kana Sheni Lo Kana. Im Amad, right? Right, and now the Shchimera rose up from his deathbed. He can retract on the second guy, because by the second guy he gave away everything. It's because he assumed he was going to die. It's understood he gave it away because he assumed he would die. Nobody gives all their assets away before they're dead. What are they going to do? How are they going to eat tomorrow, right? But if he gave everything away, it's only on the assumption he was going to die. So he can go back on the second guy because the second guy cleaned him out, but not on the first guy. He left over something for himself. He left over the other 75% to give to the second guy, Lasheni. But he can go back from the second guy, he can retract, right? To lo shayr klum. This is the kasha. Rav Yochanan explained the reason Rav Yossi. What did Rav Yossi say? Yossi said that the reason you can't do this shtick and putting it on a rock and saying him after it, because hefker is like a matana. Just like matana, it's not his until he gets it into his hand. The same thing, hefker is not his until the other guy picks up, meaning it's still owned by the person giving it away. Right? Why should the first guy get more than the second guy? First guy didn't get it either yet. He just he didn't actually get it. Just like what he gave the second guy left out with the first guys. He can until it gets in his hands. Since in this case we said that the 25% they gave number one is valid, you see, we don't know the Rabbi Yochanan, the Omar lo zachin mekabel ados liyadi. You see that we don't say that the recipient only gets it once it gets into his hand. Even before it gets into his hand, you can become there too. Now you could ask, this is maybe different by a shchimera, but the point is he wrote it. So once he wrote it down, he didn't mean to give it like a shchimera. He meant to give it to him wholeheartedly. He wrote it down, and it wasn't the last of his assets. So that's the kasha on Rabbi Yochanan pshat. Must again see it in the Gemara. Must Rabbi B'Tzaslim B'Shem Kol Sheni Rishon Kana Sheni Lo Kana. So you see over here that the first guy doesn't get it automatically. That if the first guy did get it automatically. Rabbi Yochanan said, just like by matana, it's not his until he gets into his hands. So same thing by hefker. It's not his until it gets in. It didn't leave the hands of the first guy until it gets into the hands of the second guy. And at that point, when it leaves, he's giving it directly from Shimon to Rebbe. It's not like there was an in-between stage. Over here, you see that you could be kona even though it didn't reach into his hands. Ela Marava in the Gemara. Ela Marava Hainu time of the Reb Yossi. You know where Reb Yossi says it's also on Mishnah. The reason why he says it's no good in our Mishnah, really it is good. Really it is good. If a guy's mafkarit, he can be mafkarit, and it's hefker. And when Reuben picks it up, Reuben who can't have enough Mishum picks it up, that's okay. Minatorah, that's okay. But we're afraid it's too close to the situation of Memches that I quoted before, the story before with the father and the son, that the father couldn't have Hano, and the son wanted to come to the wedding. So he said, okay, Yaakov, I'm giving it to you, and we're going to come and eat here. So it was very clear that he never really meant to give it to him. So that's too obvious. Too obvious is almost like a shliach, like he's sending him a shliach to do this. He said before, you can't have Hano, and he sends a shliach to give him the food or to help him construct his house or whatever it was. That's direct enough. If he did it, obviously said, you give it and I'll pay you. You give it to him and I'll pay you. Here's the deal. That's a messenger. Here too, when he said, you take the house and the meal and the whole thing, and we'll eat from there. It was obvious. It wasn't even he didn't really give it to him at all, because he said, it's okay, it's in your name and we're eating it in your name. So that's obviously wasn't doing anything. So it's exer because of that. That's really usher, because in that case he never really gave it to him. In the case of the father and the son never really gave it to Yankel. He didn't really mean to give it to him at all. And this case of Rabbi Yossi is close to that too, where you put it down in Hefker, even though yes, it is Hefker. And if the other guy picked it up and Reuven picked it up, he didn't get it directly from Shimon. But you know what? It's too close to that case. And therefore he answered it. That's what the Gemara says now. Because it looks too much like that case. And look at the Rashi now, 4 lines down in the wide lines in Rashi and the left side in Rashi. The gear says Hefker is immediate, just like a gift. You can give a gift right away, sign it over to him, and give it a gift. True, if it's not a shchibira, maybe there has to be some kinyan or somebody else being caught up from. But if a shchibira writes it down, it's good enough. Hefker, it is Hefker. My time of Yossi, the also Mastisen. I time of Yossi, the lower Hefker. Why? Minator, it is Hefker. We should man the space chorin. Like the case we just quoted from the case of Mechesta. Muchamilsa. He only gave it to him so his father should be Yochel. Since there's nobody else there, right? There's 2 guys there, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven can't have it off from Shimon. They're on an isolated road. There's nobody else there. And he wants to give it to him. And he puts it down. He says, it's Hefker, whoever wants it. There's nobody else there. Of course you're giving it to him. Right? It's obvious that he's only being mafkir for the other guy. It's similar to only in this case. In other words, normally matana, you can give matana, even though the other guy didn't receive it, you can write it over to him, and it's considered a gift. You can have a symbolic kinyan over there. You actually have to get it. And the same thing with Hefker. I'm after something in front of 3 people. That's a proper Hefker. You're after it even though nobody picked it up. It's Hefker. And if somebody picks it up afterwards, he's not getting it directly from you. But this looks too obvious in a case where they're out in the field or out in the road alone. There's nobody else there. He looks like he's giving it to him. That's how the Ron learns. One more case. Why?
If Rav Yossi's reason is because of Zera Beit, why doesn't it apply to the other cases in the mission as well?
Not as obvious, because in those cases it's not as obvious.
But
in those cases,
it's closer to the
right? No,
store.
Right. This is last case is closer to Beis Charon store, but the other cases,
other cases when he's
he said
winking to the store owner.
Yeah, because there, the Mepharshim say because there he had other options too. Reuven had other options. He could have gone himself to another store and bought some food. He wasn't like out on the road with nothing to eat. He had other options. Shimon was just concerned. He forbade him to have enough. Oh man, he can't have enough for me. Maybe he won't have food. So he went and so he doesn't build a house. He doesn't build a fence. He doesn't harvest the field. If he has a field to harvest, he's not destitute, right? He's got a field to harvest. Maybe he's not destitute. It's not as serious a situation as here, where he says, I don't know how to help him. In the first cases, he just, he has, but he had other options, right? Or even if he was a third person there. Look, when he said they're on the road and he sees the other guys don't have what to eat, here he's more desperate, but there's a third person there. So he gives it to the third person. The third person gives him, it's not directly because he gave it to him. I gave it to wholeheartedly to the third person. But here they're the only 2 people there. There's nobody else there. And he's being mafkid. It's almost like he's giving it to him directly. It looks like, he looks like he's a direct giving it, just like the son's directly really giving the food of the wedding to the father. So he wants to make a shtick and he says, okay, I'm giving it to you, but he didn't really give it to the uncle. It's too close to that case. That's where Rav Yossi answers it in this case, but not in the other cases. So we have here basically the machlokas between the Rabbanan and Rav Yossi. And Rav Yossi says you can't do the shtick, and the Rabbanan say you can. The Gemara now is going to go to another case. We'll see this case tomorrow, but we'll just say the beginning of the case. Tanya, just to finish the daf, short of Tanya, mafkir sadeu. If a person makes his field, ownerless, right? He's mafkir the field, he abandons the field. Koslos is yom, the first 3 days, you can go back on it. he can retract. Now, mikan ve'elach ein yochel lachzor. We'll see why. The Gemara will explain the reason is that hefker is potter from meiser, right? Hefker is split out of a pasuk. Says that benishma prat lehefker. If it's learned from pasuk that if you have hefker doesn't have to give meiser. Let's say you found the field that was hefker and it's got all kinds of produce, you don't have to give meiser on that. Hefker is potter from meiser. So you might have a guy who's going to do a shtick and he's going to make it hefker, and take it back right away. Okay, I got it from hefker. I'm mafker it, and then he takes it right back. So he doesn't have to give meiser. So it's a shtick to get around it. So the rabbi said, if you're mafker something, it's hefker right away. But you know what? For the first 3 days, it's not hefker. So when you're making something hefker, what you want to do? Why would you make it hefker? It's not hefker unless it's known. You have to put up a sign or people have signs out in their field, in their houses. You can take my fruits and stuff that grow on the tree. It's hefker shmita. You have to put up a sign. You have to be mafker in front of 3 people. So here he's mafker it. So, but if he takes it right back, when nobody's looking, he'll take it right back. So we say, for 3 days, it's not hefker anyway. So you're chayiv and meiser. And if for 3 days it's yours, you're not going to be mafker it because you're afraid somebody will take it in those 3 days, right? So mafker today, he can go back on it, meaning it's really still his, because the rabbi said he can go back on it. That's what Tanakama says. Omar, let's say at the top of Mandela, Omar let's say he says that this field is mufker for 1 day. Now, but after 3 days, he can't go back on it, right? It says, he can't go back on his hefker, okay? Which sounds like after 3 days, he can't go back on it, he can't take it back, all right? And after 3 days, it's takapata for meiser. And whoever gets it, whoever's open it, whether it's him or somebody else, right? Then whoever's open is part from meiser. But apparently he can't take it back. But after 3 days, it's valid. Let's say he says it's mufker for 1 day, or for 1 week, or for 1 month, for 1 year, for one 7-year cycle. Until somebody else takes it, until somebody else gets it. Either he can take it back or not, meaning because it's still his. Once somebody else took it, whether he took it. So here the question is going to be, the Reisha sounds like the Rabbanan, and the Sefer is Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi said, until such time, we're going now with the first opinion where Rabbi Yochanan explained Rabba said, that time Rabbi Yochanan is exam, but really it's considered hefker right away, and it's not his at all. But going on the svara that Rabbi Yochanan said, that's not kasha on Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yossi holds that hefker is not hefker until the other guy takes it. It's not really mufker until the person who picks it up takes it, and therefore when he takes it, he's taking it from you. That's what the sefer sounds like. It's never really hefker until you can go back on it, because it's not really hefker until somebody else takes it. But once somebody else takes it, then you can't go back on it. That means, though, that it's not hefker until the other guy picks it up. That's Rabbi Yossi. But the Reish is mashma, it is hefker. It's hefker after 3 days. It's hefker. The first 3 days, it's not hefker because it's exera. We don't want you just to be mafker and 5 seconds later pick it up. But afterwards, it's really hefker. You can't go back on it. And if somebody else picked it up, you could pick it up. Meaning, when we say yachal achsabo, that means that if I mafker something for the first 3 days, you can't take it because it's really mine. That's what he said. The first, I can go back on it. When I can go back on it. If you picked it up, can I go back? Yeah, I can go back on it because it's really mine. That's what Tanakama says. It's exera because we don't want you to be mafker something and pick it right up. So we say, for 3 days, it's still yours. Nobody else can take it. After 3 days, it's mamash hefker. So the problem is that it sounds like the first part of this brisa sounds like the Rabbanan, that hefker is hefker. Except for 3 days, the rabbis made a rule that you can't. That it's not valid. It's like a 3 day delay, like when you're buying a gun. A grace period. No, there's another one. What do they call it? The opposite. When you buy a gun, there's like a waiting period that you can't. In America, they have a gun. They add to the 400 million guns. One more gun is going to make a difference. But they give 3 days. They got to check you out and all that because they don't want people just to get angry, go get a gun and start shooting the school up or the post office up or whatever. So they make that 3 day wait. So here's also like the Chum said, there's a 3 day waiting period. It's not considered, but afterwards it's hefker. That sounds like the Rabbanan, but the Sefer sounds like Rabbi Yossi. So that's what the Gemara is going to ask. We'll pick this up from here tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Have a good day.